All right, y'all. So you're about to watch a review done by Rash Plays for my mana Bloody Hell. You can check it out on his channel as well, but I'm uploading it here as well, just in case. Well, the Coffee Comics audience don't catch it on his channel because they're not subscribers there. I recommend you subscribe to his channel. Dude knows his stuff. He don't play no games. He's no hunchback. He's no glazer. He's a true, genuine consumer of manga, and that's exactly why I reached out to him to get an honest take on my mana bloody hell. So I was surprised. Even he was surprised. He thought he was going to butcher me, but he didn't. So for those who are gonna say, "Oh man, you probably paid him $1,000," like nigga, please, bro. I ain't got time to bribe people. I hate lies. I hate that disingenuous life. You should know that by now. So check it out. And if you have not purchased Bloody Hell yet because you just wanted to hate, well, stay hating. But if you were on the fence, well, after this review, maybe you'll be interested. So link in the description box to buy volume 1 and 2 digital purchase. They are on a Christmas sale right now, so it's $8 for volume 1 and 2. Volume 3 is in the works, should come out next year before July. So yeah, I'd be pushing. This video was definite Omega fuel for me to keep going. It was really nice. This was what it feels like when someone gives you a genuine review, huh? Now I know the feeling. I mean, I've been doing it for y'all, but now somebody's done it for me to this extent, to this amount of depth. So it's really cool. So yeah, check it out, buy it if you're gonna be interested. Stay tuned for volume 3. And there's some surprise nuggets in this review that I didn't think I would see, such as him calling out indie manga in general, those who are pandering to stuff. So that was really cool to see because I've been doing that for the longest and people were calling me a hater. And shout outs to King J for still calling me an a-hole and a hater and all that. You are one sorry, pathetic nigga, bro. Cause you still on this channel watching, bruh. Going after everybody who's spoken to me. Like, give me a break, man. Alright, caramba. So check it out. Subscribe to Rash Plays. He's got some cool videos there. And we're gonna have an interview coming up real soon. So stay tuned to that interview. It's going to be sizzling.
So, I just finished 2 volumes of the American manga known as Bloody Hell. And I would be lying if I said I was not surprised at what I read. Usually when it comes to a lot of these American manga, I'm very disappointed. But there are subtle ways that lets it stand out against typical renditions of what people try to make as manga in the West. This story would be about our main character known as Jacob trying to claim revenge for his mother and father by killing Dracula. Now, I already know what you're thinking. A lot of you probably are tired of revenge stories, but this actually got me a little interested. It's definitely a good start, and I want to see how the creator of Bloody Hell evolves after reading this. Because initially, when I heard Dracula, I was kind of not really impressed. But I like this take on the character, making him his own unique depiction, rather than just biting and sucking off the blood of the famous name of the vampire we all know. The original identity of Dracula would be August, who is a king that existed in this world. And he would have fought with a spear alongside his army. And ironically enough, he would have wanted to repel all of the vampires. Then, unfortunately, he would become the strongest vampire there is, making him nothing more than a puppet and a vessel to this ever-growing embodiment of evil, which makes me raise an eyebrow to what the fuck is Dracula really? Because this entire situation would have happened in a meteor crash site. So if these vampires have a connection to aliens, that definitely has me a bit interested, because a lot of mangas like this don't really have creativity and ideas that make things out of the ordinary. And this is doing something that a lot of these Western mangas might need to take notes from, because there are a lot of good ideas here. And of course, me mentioning other Western mangas, I might have to just bring them up now. You got series like Apple Black and others I guess aren't really worth mentioning, and I read some of them, but this manga really stands out compared to a lot of these quote-unquote American mangas. I shit you not, most of the time a lot of these guys have art on lock, but the story is nothing to write home about, but the story here is actually interesting. And I gotta be honest, a lot of the contemporaries here are just musty as fuck. Bloody Hell knows exactly what it wants to be, and it doesn't try and pander to a specific audience who probably doesn't even exist, just to make a few sales by being more American. Reading this, at times I actually felt like I was looking at an anime. Now, you may take a look at Bloody Hell and think, well, this doesn't look like anime, but I will admit it did kind of feel like one at times, which is a lot more that I can really latch onto in comparison to other mangas. Now, you could try and put this in the same vein as something like Invincible Fight Girl that tries to wear anime on its sleeve when it's clearly not, or Cannon Busters. God save my soul. If I gotta relive this trauma, so do you. Now, to hit home this point about being more American, I will admit this manga would be known as a mana. And admittedly so, sometimes people like to advertise what they're making to a specific audience, the American audience per se. Although this series does try to cater to Americans because it is a mana after all, it doesn't try to force the fact that it's trying to be American down my throat, which not only makes it a more worthwhile read, but it still retains its own identity. The ideal mana would use a Western style of art and storytelling, and would also try and redefine Western storytelling in comics. But rather than just trying to be an American anime, this manga feels like an anime just made by an American, which is actually something that makes it worthwhile, unlike everything else that I've been seeing get made in this art space. Now, a lot of you heard me years before give my own thoughts and opinions about this American movement in manga, and why I think it will lead to a lot of failure and lack of success in the medium, and I still stand by that, so I'm gonna give you my take on this whole entire mana thing. I don't think anything should strive to try and be American to make sales. It just needs to be what it wants to be, and naturally, people are gonna gravitate towards it, and I'm not gonna lie, this makes me kind of gravitate towards Bloody Hell, because it's not throwing the constant American bullshit in my face, and it just happens to be made by an American, and that makes it so much better. I personally believe a lot of us should just try and beat the Japanese at their own game. After all, anime is anime, manga is manga. It comes from a certain place, and that is what holds it together. That is why we love it. That is why we create to this day. Even though it's called a mana, it still feels like a manga. Now, of course, you can look at it and you can call it amateur if you want, but I think this is a great start and a nice foundation to use, not only as an artist, because a lot of these people in this space are good artists, but they lack good storytelling and so much more. You'd be surprised how really deep this runs. I mean, there's constant copying and so much more. Like, I'm fucking stupid and not gonna notice this shit. I'm looking at you, Ruthless Render. I mean, you just need to take a look at the panels right here, and it doesn't take a genius to really put two and two together. This is an example of those guys who have amazing artwork, and a lot of you can't really look beyond that. So it's nice to see something that isn't trying to push diversity, or something that isn't blatantly copying other manga. Which, I mean, of course, you can draw a comparison between Berserk and Bloody Hell's protagonist Jacob, because they have giant greatswords and they have fairies following them around. And I will admit, a huge problem with the space is that people can't help but wear their inspiration on their sleeves. And despite that, this series is different. so I can take Bloody Hell pretty seriously. And with Bloody Hell, the creator feels like a mangaka. That is the difference. Bloody Hell is something that can do both. It has art that's not gonna completely push me away, but it has a story that gives it a strong enough backbone to leave an impression. When it comes to Bloody Hell, I see a lot of potential. And really, despite what anyone may say about the art or anything else, give this series enough time and let this artist develop, and I think it will be something that is actually going to be able to be confidently put on bookshelves. It reminds me of one of my favorite comics growing up, Amulet. I remember the very first time I read that like it was fucking yesterday. And that was in 2008, and it's 2024 now. That was 16 years ago. That series just left that much of an impression, and I think Bloody Hell, with enough time and polish, will do the same to a lot of young readers for this next generation. Honestly, I may as well just be as surprised as you are to be talking about Bloody Hell so positively, because I was really expecting to tear this series to shreds, but a lot of things in the writing just happened to stand out. For instance, the main character, Jacob. One thing that I really did like was when he was training and he was harnessing his powers of hatred, and his mentor was trying to teach him self-control. And in response to her advice, he would give her a smile and a thumbs up. But there's a lot more to this scene than you would think, because this smile and this thumbs up is potentially a lie. There's a constant inner struggle within this character where he's either using everyone around him to kill Dracula, or fight with a calm mind and cooperate with everyone around him and successfully work as a team. Now, whether or not he's trying to use these people for his ambitions, or if he genuinely cares about them, creates a very interesting character arc, where the identity of our main character could potentially be a lie. And this is something that has only been done a few times, even in Shonen Jump, and seeing which direction the author makes this character develop makes for a really interesting storyline, because the main character is half vampire. So it just lets you imagine just how horrible of a person he can be once he finally submits himself to his vampiric qualities, even though early on he gives himself to God and the light. But the concept of duality here is really interesting, because how far is this light really going to take him? What's the breaking point until he finally submits himself to the darkness? You see, this is the kind of character writing that needs to be made in the medium of American manga that's actually going to get readers interested. This isn't shallow like Exogenesis, Primus 7, or Fourth Rope, where you're supposed to just like it to relate to a character by something as minuscule as skin color. This is just blatantly good writing and good storytelling that makes me become attached. I know I'm throwing a lot of shots at other, I don't even know if I can call them mangas, but I'm shooting down all of these different expressions of art because they don't focus on what makes a manga, and that's just a good story. There's no pandering, there's no diversity that's going to make up for that, and Bloody Hell makes up for it on its own merits, and it has enough confidence to be compelling, to tell a story that is going to get me invested. That's all anyone who gives a damn about anime, let alone gaming too, cares about. Games like Concord, Dustborn, and even an expression like Ordinal Tempest are just terrible bottom barrel excuses to get someone's attention. Bloody Hell is such a breath of fresh air. I can't stress it enough. And I hope you're beginning to understand why I'm praising it so much. It's a real manga. It's a real attempt at making a manga. There are characters actually worth a damn, with the main character's master, Irene, not really feeling any compassion towards his struggles because she is a vampire and she's cold-hearted by nature. Now, whether or not this is explored in the writing with her trying to go against her nature and actually care for Jacob, or she lets him die without even batting a single eye, it leaves room for really good storytelling. And we have Arthur, a child that has become a king, bearing the responsibilities of an adult. Even then, after trying to make sure that this world is no longer doomed, he still wants to live life and be a child. And whether or not his childish qualities are going to end the world or save it leaves something actually worth seeing. So I'm going to give credit where credit is due, because even so, the dialogue is actually really good, despite a few hiccups here and there. The name of this series is Bloody Hell, and sometimes the main character would say Bloody Hell, which is pretty funny, I will admit, but it kinda does break a bit of immersion for me at times. Because really, the story takes itself seriously, and when I read that, it makes me become more self-aware and not take the story as serious as I should. Which is a bit of a nitpick. If this was done near the end of the manga, probably where he's fighting Dracula, it would make a really iconic moment. But that's if the wordplay really feels that necessary to add. I'm not going to tell anyone how they should or shouldn't write their story, but I would also avoid using terms like power level and base form. I remember when 7 Deadly Sins, they gave Hawk the earring and he started talking about everyone's power levels. It really just takes away from the power fantasy that makes things so interesting. But then again, this is a tool used to let people understand just how strong characters are. So I get why it's being used. I had to get that off my chest. But the dialogue here, where the characters talk with a vocabulary that isn't mind-numbing. You can take in the words that you're reading and not feel like a fucking elementary school student. And characters talk to themselves during conversations, which gives you a better understanding on what's going on and how they express themselves. And seeing how what these characters say or what they think coincides or goes against their actions is satisfying. And it makes for amazing conversations when characters can read each other like a book. Whether it's Lancelot exposing Ivory for treason, or suspecting Julian of being envious of his little brother for becoming the king, the conversations have layers that I like seeing unfold, with Julian having expressions of anger when mentioning his younger brother that he's envious of. Some characters would pick up on this jealousy and others might not, and it creates nice dynamics in the plot. But as readers, we're well aware of what's happening, seeing the shit show that's about to happen. There's also an interesting amount of world building here as well, with Earth 1 and Earth 2 existing alongside a night realm, leaving our characters plenty of places to explore and continue the adventure. There's too many excuses to give me a chance to reading this, figuring out what happened to Earth 1, why there's a giant meteor, how Dracula exists, and what kind of actions the main character is going to take, and knowing what their god is or what this Book of Light is makes me want to see all of my questions get answered. The DC Comics approach to Earth 1 and Earth 2 did make me a little bit skeptical when it came to the world building, but there's a lot going on, and don't let me get started on all of the other continents that exist here. But Bloody Hell has a really solid foundation, and it actually feels like a manga. I think I'm gonna leave it at this when it comes to my thoughts. If I had to give any advice to the author, I would say don't even bother trying to be a mana, just be a manga and make something that even the Japanese people would want to see. Just go all out. It was a nice change of pace compared to reading all these other expressions of art that I'm used to looking at. Whether it's vampires potentially being aliens, seeing how everything can unravel in this story showed me a lot of potential from the 2 volumes I read. With enough time and polish, this can be something amazing, and I don't say this lightly. If you made it this far, thank you for watching the video, and make sure to check out these other manga reviews I'm showing on your screen right now. If you liked this one, you're gonna love those.